Hey guys, a very good morning to all of you. This is Yogen from FOSS Technologies. Guys, can you please confirm using the chat window if you can hear me clearly? Is my audio clear and the screen is visible to you guys? Please let me know. Okay, so Akrit Bhargav saying yes. Avinab, Sumit, Khushi, Ojas, Samrid, Parthi. Okay, a lot of people. Maulik, Rakesh, Ahana, Mishra, Sushant Raj. Okay, a lot of people are confirming, guys, that okay, things are good to start with. Sushant is also there. So, guys, welcome to all of you. And as you guys are already informed that this is going to be a 2 days workshop. Every day we are going to meet from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. We will have a break in between. I think 15 minutes break would be enough. And collectively, guys, in these 2 days, we are going to have 4 sessions. Okay. And I hope the schedule is already with you. Guys, can you please confirm that, do you have a schedule that what we are going to do in the next 2 days? What are the different sessions? Guys, can someone please confirm me on that? Okay, so Kushi is saying yes, but a couple of people are saying no as well. Ojas is saying no. Probably Ojas has not gone through the email they have circulated. Okay, that's fine, guys. You know, I'll just talk about. So, guys, before uh, we start on this, you know, I have couple of questions for you, and then I will introduce myself as well. I have, you know, already told you that my name is Yogendra, and I'm from FOSS Technologies, guys. And before I talk about more on that, I'll just, you know, a couple of questions for you guys, okay? And just to better organize this workshop, so you have a good, you know, a worthy takeaway after the 2 days. You feel that yes, it was, you know, worthy of attending the sessions. So I have the first question for you guys. Uh, what is your current year? Are you a second year student, third year student, fourth year student? Sir, just please let me know over the chat window, what is your current year? So Kushi saying second, Avinav saying second, Ahana second, Ayushi, Akrit, Maulik, Tanisha, Sumit, okay, Parthi, Pranav, Sudhanshu. So far, all people have replied saying they are second year candidate. Ayush is the first year. Okay, good. What about others, guys? Can you please give me what is your current year in Manipal? That will really help me in tweaking this program, you know, as per your need. So I just want to have that, you know, information with me. Samrid, Sushant, Alice. Okay, a lot of people uh, from, you know, a second year. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thanks for the confirmation and thanks for replying on that. Now, guys, my second question is coming to you. Uh, you just need to say yes and no, basically. Are you familiar with the basic Python programming? Please let me know. So, Parthi, Akrit, Prachi, Tanisha, Samrid, Radhika, Siddharth, okay, Rakesh, Ayush. A lot of people are saying yes, but a couple of people saying no to me as well. But majority of the people are saying that they are familiar with Python programming. That's good. Guys, those who, oh yeah, that's fine, Abhinav. I'm just looking, I'm asking like basic Python only. I'm not talking about the advanced Python. I'm just, you know, that you are familiar, that, you know, at least, you know, you can write the basic statements there. Couple of people have said no to me, Ayush, Rakesh, Ahana, and a couple of more. So guys, are you familiar with other programming language, any basic programming language, maybe C, maybe C++, maybe Java, or any other programming language? Do you have a basic idea around that? Okay, Ayushi, Ahana, okay, Abhinav saying C++, Ojas is saying, okay. So guys, Ayush is saying yes, C++ and Java, that's good. Prachi saying Java, Rakesh Lanka saying C, good guys. So almost all of the people in this room, they have a, a knowledge of a programming language, at least basic programming language, okay? You guys being mostly into the second year. So I think it's good that you have the basic understanding. In the first year, you must have gone through some kind of, uh, maybe a lab or something like that on programming language, and that's good. So guys, whether you come from CS, whether you come from EC, whether you come IT, just let me know, please, guys. What is your major? What is your major, guys? Please let me know. Because you guys are now second year, so most of you guys now know where you come from, right? Or what you are going to be in. So a couple of people saying yes, CSE, couple of people saying EC, someone saying IT, someone saying data science, someone saying CCE. Okay. So, okay, good guys. So it's a mix basically, right? People from electronics, people from computer science, people from CCE, people from IT, people from data science. So DSE, I mean, Niharika, DSE means data science and engineering. That's what you say? Niharika? Okay, good. Fine. So guys, a couple of questions were there from my side. So I just, find out what should be the right way for our sessions. Now, guys, uh, I represent a company called FOSS. That there on the screen. Guys, this is close to 6 years of Fernandez. We started this in 2015, summer of 2015. We are primarily into two things, two business actually. One is projects consultation in the area of data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, analytics. That is our area. We work with a lot of companies, particularly startups, and some of the universities as well, where we are partner in their research projects implementations. Okay, that is the one thing. Along with that consultation, kind of a arm, we have a coding academy, which is known as FOSC Coding School. And this also started, but a little later than FOSS Technologies. And we basically, prepare a lot of people to move into a technology, jobs, tech jobs, particularly related to data science, AI, ML, web, kind of that. So that is the one, kind of a quick introduction to FOSC. Guys, before starting FOSS Technologies, me and Sylvester, we are, we know each other for last 10, 15 years. We have worked together with multiple companies in Bangalore, in US, China, Japan, a couple of places. And if you want to know more details about me, who am I? I'm not going to show my face. That's not required for you. Anyway, the screen is being shared with you. That is your place. Playground is that. And guys, if you want to have a more details around my profile, that's my LinkedIn profile. You can click on that and see who am I. Okay, close to 14, 15 years of experience now, mostly into IT space. I have worked with Qualcomm, world's leading semiconductor company. Phone devices that you have in your pockets, on your hand, 90% of the chipset comes from Qualcomm, a Snapdragon processor. If you have heard, I have worked there in their Hyderabad location. and other multiple positions in startups and other big companies as well. So that's about me. Now, guys, let's see how we are going to conduct this workshop in the 2 days. So, guys, either I would be using this whiteboard that you can see right now, or either I would be using uh, a tool so that we can write some code, or so that we can implement something. These are the only two things you will see. I have no PPT, I have no presentation, because this is going to be a workshop, so it has to be practical, and we'll keep it practical only. So that is one thing. Guys, your side, neither from my side. That's it, right? So you don't need to start that. All of you guys are muted right now, and you would be keep muted actually during the whole workshop. If you have any questions, please make use of the chat window. You can ask the question anytime, although I would be giving some dedicated time as well. With the closer of every session, we will have a 5 to 10 minutes where you can come and ask your question, right? And you can ask anything basically, right, related to this workshop. If you have any questions, right, the topic that is going on or anything, right, you can have the questions there, and I would read it loud so that all others can understand. Okay, and I will try to answer each and every question, but if I skip something, that would be not a intentional activity. And if you find that your question has not been answered, you can resend that question, guys. I would definitely try to answer that. Okay, I'm not going to skip anything, but sometimes it may happen. If you have a lot of questions, you are flooded with that, it's very normal. You can miss a couple of questions, but in case you don't find the answer, please let me know again that I did not reply to you. So that would be the format, guys. Journal timings are from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. right? We will keep a 10-15 minutes break in between. Okay, so after the first session, let's say we are closing by 12, for example, we'll have a 10 minutes break, and please all rejoin on the time, so that we can start the session on the time, and we'll close by 1 p.m. So do you guys copy that? Is that clear with everyone? That that's how we are going to run this. And guys, whenever I make a request to all of you regarding any question or any feedback, please respond to that so that we can make it interactive, right? So I think the format is clear. Okay, good, guys. Thanks. That's cool. Now, guys, there would be 4 sessions. Okay, there would be 4 sessions. Today is our day 01, right? In the first session, I'm going to talk about functional programming in Python, right? That is the first session we are going to have. The second session would be around how come you can perform a data analytics using an open source library, which is a very popular one in the data analytics space, Pandas. Okay, and that is, we are going to write the code and using this library and Pandas in Python as well. We will have a data set here, guys. Okay, we would be making use of a data set, and we would be performing some analytical analytics activities on that. We would be doing some EDA, exploratory data analysis, using Pandas. So that would be interesting exercise. So these are the 2 sessions for today. Tomorrow, guys, we'll start with machine learning. So the basic foundations of the machine learning, that would be in the first session tomorrow. That would be day 02, guys. So ML foundation. So that what I will try, I will create a kind of a foundation for you, so that you understand that what the ML is, what the AI is, what the DL is, right? What the analytics is, what the NLP is, right? what the data engineering is, what the data pipelining is, or you know, all those related terms which keep on floating in the literature uh, over in a blog or article or YouTube videos or courses or the books you read, right? So I would be talking about those. And based on those learnings, right, we will create our first machine learning model. Okay, so we will build a machine learning model using a data set, and we'll try to answer a couple of questions that are part of that problem statement. So we'll try to solve a basic problem using machine learning techniques, and that would be a kind of first machine learning model for you if you are, you know, coming to this space for the first time. Even if you know what the ML is, this is going to be a really interesting session for you tomorrow, guys. So again, you know, this is going to be a completely practical session. We will have a data set and build something using that and answer a couple of questions. Similarly, this activity for today, this is again going to be a practical activity. I will take a couple of practical examples here as well when we talk about the functional programming in Python. So this is kind of a start where I can say that this is kind of a intermediate start of the Python. I'm not going through the basics of the Python. Okay, but even if you are new to Python, but that's okay. You will get it very clearly because you already know, you know, the basic programming in C or Java and C++. And if you are good in some other programming language, moving in or catching up on a new programming language, you know, is easy actually, right? It's not a big deal. So that is one thing, guys. Now, before we come to, you know, the functional programming part of Python, guys, couple of things for you that as of now, okay, as of now, Python is one of the most popular programming languages. And this was 19 by Stack Overflow, which is a very popular site, guys, right? To answer the technical questions. People can raise the questions, people can answer the questions. So it's a kind of a social media for technical, you know, queries and questions. So guys, as per the 2019 Stack Overflow survey, Python was the most popular programming language, and it has been, you know, picking up. There is no saturation yet in the adoption of this programming language. A lot of people, you know, particularly the data science community, the people who are working in the data science domain as a data scientist or data analyst or machine learning engineer or data engineer, whatever the name you may have, or business analyst, or, you know, BI engineers, business intelligence. Okay, all of the people are using Python. Before the arrival of Python, although Python is kind of started in 1995, 1995 around. I'm not very sure about the day and date, but that's how, you know, it all started. Before Python coming on the, you know, center stage in data science domain, there were other things as well, right? SAS was one of the tool and languages that were, you know, that was used for analytics activities. You know, later on, SAS was replaced by R, capital R. This is again a popular programming language for analytics, but not for machine learning, right? So R is very specific to data analytics part, but now this is again kind of replaced from the top position by Python, which is the current hot cake in data science community, guys. Future may be, you know, different. I'm not saying that Python is going to stay there for a long time, but at least for 4 or 5 years when you graduate, this would be still in the market. And later on, it can be Julia or some other programming languages. So guys, Python is not only for data science projects, not only for machine learning projects. Python is basically a general programming language. Okay. Yes, that is the fact that Python has got the highest uses in data science domain. That is one thing. That is for sure. Okay. The second space where Python is being used heavily is the automation, robotics, right? So what do you mean by automation? Replacing a manual activity, right? By making use of a hardware or by making use of a software or a combination of a both, right? You are replacing the manual activity. That is known as automation. And automation is a kind of which is picking up a lot, you know, a lot of traction nowadays in the industry, guys. Okay, and a lot of automation engineers are, as well as in the non-tech company. Okay, so this is where the automation implementation is happening through Python. And the third is web development. So web development, you know, in the web development as well, Python is used as a backend programming language. And two particular, you know, frameworks or libraries which are Python based and which are used by web developers to develop their backend. Backend means server side programming, right? So we have a library called Flask in Python community, open source. You can use Flask to build your web server or backend programming. Uh, Other than Flask, we have you know, one more called Django, right? D is a silent here, guys. Okay, so this is Django. So Django is a heavyweight, you know, framework. A lot of complex, you know, applications can be built on that. Guys, if you know a popular MOOC platform, do you know, guys, EDX? There is a MOOC platform where you have lots of online courses, right? Massive open, you know, online courses are there. So EDX is entirely built on Django, actually. You know, they guys are using Django. So these are the primary uses of the Python. Primary uses, right? And Python is a scripting language, guys. Okay, and if you want to develop a project in Python, let's say you want to use Python as a programming language or as a coding language, you can use, you know, two different types of development environments. What do you mean by development environment? Basically, you would be needing a integrated, you know, development environment where you can write the code, where you can organize your code files, where you can organize the project work, where you can organize other, you know, resources like data files, like, you know, images, you know, maybe uh, some other format of a data, you know. So where you can organize your project completely, where even you can debug it, you know. So if there is an issue and the code is not performing the way you expected, then what is the problem, how to find out that, how to trace the issue, right? That activity is known as debugging. Okay, so you can, you know, debug your code using these IDs. So there are two different types of IDs available, guys. Okay, one kind of IDs are offline, right? And other one are online. So sometimes this offline IDs are also known as desktop based. So to use an offline ID, you just need to download the installer. And for that purpose, obviously, you need an internet connection. But once the installer has been downloaded and you install, right? After that, you do not need a persistent internet connection, guys. Okay, you can continue to use that offline application or desktop application. If there is a tool called, guys, Anaconda, which is the most popular tool for data scientists. It's an open source tool, guys, Anaconda. You can download the Anaconda, and Anaconda is basically a package. Okay, it contains lot of IDEs, guys. Anaconda is a package, complete package. It contains an IDE called a Spider. You can use a Spider. It contains a IDE called Jupyter. You can use Jupyter. You know, it contains a ID called Orange. It contains a ID called VS Code. It contains a ID called PyCharm. Lot of IDs are available. You can use, any of them, but mostly data scientists either go with a Spider or either go with the Jupyter. These are the two primary IDs inside this package. You can go and install this one on your, desktop, guys. So if you see, I open up my browser, guys, Firefox, and here you say download Anaconda. So guys, if you see this, you have this homepage, right? www.anaconda.com. If you click on this, here, guys, that's the homepage, and can you see that that's the download button? You can click on this Anaconda Individual Edition. And can you see, guys, it is available for Mac as well. It is available for Windows as well, and for Linux as well. So you can click on this. Oh, and then you can see, guys, correspondingly you can select any of your basically as per your system, as per your machine. You can pick either Windows downloader or a Mac downloader. That is up to you, what you prefer, right, guys? That is there. Now, once Anaconda has been downloaded and installed, guys, later on you can start any of the IDE that we have listed here. You can launch PyCharm, you can launch a Spider, you can, that is the option available inside Anaconda. You can click on the corresponding icon, right? And then you will get a kind of a ID. So that is one thing, guys. This is about the offline, IDs. There are certain online IDs available as well. You can use them. If you are using an online IDE, you do not need to download the installer. You don't need to install anything. You just need a browser, and within that browser you can open that online IDE, guys. And the most popular IDE right now in the online format is from Google, which is known as Colab. Basically it's a short form, collaboratory, right? So Google Colab, we call it as a Google Colab. So for our workshop, guys, we are going to use this one, Google Colab. So how to use Google Colab? So guys, let me know, have you ever used Google Colab for any activity related to Python? Guys, have you used Google Colab in the past? Most of the people are saying no to me, but couple of yes are also there. Most of them are saying no, and very few people, the responses I have got so far, majority of them are no, but couple of them are yes as well. So I think 80-20, like 85% people are saying no, and 10 to 15% people are saying that they have used it. Okay, that's fine, guys. So let me first talk about that, how come you can start a Google Colab and how come you can write the code there. Okay, so guys, because Colab is a Google product and all of the Google services are linked to your Gmail account, right? Whether you are using email or whether you are using Google Sheets or whether you are using Google Photos, whether you are using Google Drive, all of them are operating through a common account, right? So guys, this is my browser. Here you can see. Let me go to my drive, right? So currently I'm logged in through a Gmail account from Fosk. So guys, let me go into this drive.google.com. So that's I'm going to the drive now, and let's see what we get there. So guys, this is my Google Drive. Here you can see, let it be loaded completely. Now guys, if you click on this new button, guys, mind it, okay? if you click on this new button, it shows you a pop-up window. A lot of options are there, right? You can create a new folder, you can upload a new file, new Google Doc or something. Go to the more option, right guys? And in the more option, you will see this Google Collaboratory. Can you see, guys? This is what we want. So if I click on this, it will take me to the new tab. There you can see, guys, I'm in the new tab now. And it will open up a Google Colab, tool for you. It's a completely online tool. So guys, can you see? This is our Colab file. And all the Colab files are saved with the extension IPYNB. Generally, Python files are saved with .py extension, guys, right? Generally, if you are using Spyder or Jupyter, not Jupyter, if you're using PyCharm or Spyder or VS Code, all of the source files where you write the code in Python are saved with py extension. But guys, Colab does not use the py extension. It uses a different extension, and basically this is the extension used by the Jupyter as well. And where the Jupyter is in the offline mode, Anaconda package. Inside the Anaconda, you have a Jupyter. So that Jupyter also uses this format, IPYNB, which stands for Interactive Python Notebook. So guys, the code that we are writing is basically known as Colab Notebook. So we would be writing the code here, guys, for today's exercise, okay? You can give any name to this file. So here you guys, I'm changing that file, right? So let's say, what should I give? MUJ day one, that should be fine, I think, okay? So that is the IPYNB file, and later on we can share this file with you as well, right? We have a share option. Can you see, guys? There is a share option. I can give the link to you, and when you click on that link, you will get this file opened up in your browser. Now, guys, if you are the first timer, see, guys, what I'm telling you, right? If you are the first timer, you are using Colab for the first time, when you click on the new and go to the more option, you will not find this option, guys. You will not find Colab as an option in this list if you're using the Colab for the first time. Then what to do? Guys, for that, you will have to exercise this option, connect more apps. So click on this connect more apps if you are not able to find the Colab in the list, right? And that will show you a pop-up window. So now, guys, here you can search for the Colab. So guys, you can search for the Colab. And that's the Colab, guys. If you click on this, it will get connected or installed to your Google Drive, right? And once this exercise is done, you close this option, go back to the new option, click on more, and then you will see the option there. And then you can click on that and you will go to a new tab where you will have this Colab file with you with the extension IPYNB. Guys, is that clear so far? Please let me know. Is it going good for you? Please let me know, guys. Okay, Ayush, Sumit, Radhika, Ojas, Rakesh, Khushi Srivastav, Siddharth G, Ahana, Tanisha, Sushant. Okay, a lot of people. So guys, it just takes a finger to touch on the screen or click on the board, guys. I'll come to know that are you guys there? Are you guys getting the points, right? Because that is most important, right? You must be learning something new. Now, guys, we'll spend 5 minutes how to use Colab, right? We'll spend how to use Colab. So guys, as of now, you can see this is the highlighted portion of the Colab. Basically, this is known as cell where you can write the code in Python, right? So let's say we want to write a print statement. Can you see, guys? We are writing a print statement in Python, and let's say I just say hello from Fosk. This is the statement, and we want to execute it, guys. Okay. Before we execute this, guys, one more thing. Primarily, Python has got two versions: Python 2.x, Python 3.x. This x is actually a number which keeps on changing, 2.7, 2.6, like that. So x is, which keeps on changing. Similarly, this x keeps on changing, 3.6, 3.5, 3.7, 3.8, like that. Okay. February 2020. In February 2020, there is no new development after that on this product line, guys. This is known as PL, product line, right? So guys, there is no further development on this version anymore. The last update was, I think, in February 2020, but not after that. Okay. All of the new developments are going in 3.x. Okay. So that is one thing, guys. Okay. And if you want to know that what version the Colab is using, you can click on this runtime. Okay. And here, can you see, guys, we have option change runtime. Okay. And now, guys, before I talk about this one, so all of the code, guys, earlier when we were using Colab 6 months back, it used to give us an option that whether you want to write the code in 2.x or 3.x. But by default, now the entire code in the Colab is written in 3.x only, guys. Okay, that is one thing. Now, one more thing, guys, because this code would be running on the Google Cloud, because it's a Google product, right? And this is not going on your local machine. This code would be running on the cloud, the Google Cloud, right? So guys, we have to connect to the cloud first. So there is an option to connect. So guys, we can click on this connect. So can you see, guys, the status is coming as connecting. And guys, can you see it's a Python 3, can you see, guys, we are using Python 3. And now, guys, once we are, connected, can you see, guys, this? It is showing you what RAM is available and how much of space you have occupied. So currently, guys, the RAM that has been given to us is around 12.69 GB. And out of that, you are using close to 0.75 GB is current use. And then you have some disk space available, right, guys, which is close to 100 GB, right, as a secondary storage. So guys, we are connected with the Google Cloud now. And this is the statement. Now, guys, if you want to run this statement, you need to click on this. Can you see, guys? Run button is there. So you can click on the run button. Okay. And this is the output you can see. If you want to write a code in a separate cell, okay, you can take your mouse there around this boundary, and you will have these two options, code and text. We will see what the text means later. So you can click on this. Otherwise, you can click from here as well. Can you see, guys? Both options are available here as well. So if I click on that, one more cell gets opened up, and I can say print 2 plus 3, and this is how you see the output, right, guys? You can basically clear the output by clicking on these buttons as well. Okay. If you don't want to click on this run button, you can press Shift Enter, a keyboard shortcut that will also run these codes. Shift Enter, guys. Can you see? That is there. So that is one thing. Other than that, guys, what is the additional feature with these IPY-NV files is that you can write some HTML text as well. Sometimes you have to write a kind of a explanation to a certain, business logic that, why we are writing this code. If you want to express that, you can click on this text, and that will open up a HTML editor for you. There you can write the HTML, text. So guys, here you can see, I can write something. This is the demo, code, let's say, right? That is there. So now, guys, if I click outside of this editor, you will get the text here. If you double click on this again, it will open up the editor for you. And using this, guys, you can bold your content, you can make it italic, you can increase the font, right? You can create a list, you can insert an image as well. You know, a lot of possibilities are there, and people use this kind of a technique when they are making or when they are giving some demo using Colab. So already some text is there, some images are there, so it helps them to better, you know, present their content. And you know, this is how, you know, it is becoming a more popular tool, guys, Colab, right? So you can write the code as well, and you can write the text as well in this. Guys, in case you want to download the .py format of the code that you have written, although the extension of this file is ipynb, which is interactive Python notebook, but you have an option to download as a py file as well. Okay, so if you go to the file menu and then click on this download, can you see, guys, both options are available. I can download this code as a ipynb file as well, and I can download as a .py file as well. Is that clear? So guys, you know, a basic and sometimes, guys, you know, here can you see certain options are also available in the Colab. So if you click or take your mouse there, guys, and hover it, there it says code snippets. So couple of codes are there that you can use. These are the ready-made codes, guys. Okay, and you know, you can use them actually, right? So can you see, guys? If you want to open a file from the Google Drive, how come you can do that, right? If you want to use pandas to, you know, do something, so how to do that, right? Saving your data back to Google Drive, you know, how come you can do that? So guys, codes are available there. Can you see, guys? Right? So lot of things are there as a sample codes are there basically, right? These are the sample codes. So if I click on this, let's say showing the CV2 images, you know, so if you click on this, guys, can you see? It has added a code automatically for me in my Colab. Can you see, guys? Right? I just click on this that I want to show the CV2 images. You know, basically you can say images only. So how come you can show them, right? So the code has been already added. You know, so CV2 is basically, you know, kind of a computer vision, you know, images and all that. So guys, that is there, guys. Okay. But if you want to remove that code, this was just for demo purpose, guys. You can click on this, delete. So we delete this as well, and we delete this as well. And now we are back to the. So guys, are you clear that how come you can use the code snippets and other features of this Colab? Is that clear with that? You know, is everybody comfortable now, guys, on that? Okay, okay. A lot of people are saying yes to me. Good, guys. Aradhya, Joshi, Akrit, Bhargav. Good. Okay. Malik, Vishwanath Parthi, Mohit Singh. Okay, so that is there, guys. Now, guys, I was talking about the first session that talks about the functional programming in Python, right? So first of all, guys, what do you mean by functional programming? Okay, so guys, functional programming is mostly used when you need a very high performance in the data computations. Functional programmings are required when you want to process a huge amount of data very efficiently, right? There you will need the functional programming, guys. And Python is not the only functional programming language in the world. There are more than 20 languages as a functional programming languages. Okay, guys? And I think, you know, the most popular functional programming languages are, Haskell, Scala, Lisp, Okay, closure, and Python is also there. Erlang. These are the functional programming languages. Okay, now guys, the one of the key features of the functional programming languages is that they have a no concept of looping. They have a no concept of looping. They implement the looping features using recursion. Okay, they implement the looping features using recursion, but they have no for loop or while loop kind of structures in any of the functional programming languages. But Python has, a for loop. For each loop is there, while loop is there in the Python, right? So, Python is not a complete functional programming language. I would call it as a partially functional programming language. Certain features are there which work as a functional programming language, right? But not completely the functional programming language. So today we are going to talk about those features where you see that, how to write a code which is a functional programming code. Okay. Now, guys, just to give the example, guys, we are using mobile devices to talk to each other, right? And how come these mobile devices get connected to each other over the call, right? You dial a number and then it gets connected, right? And then you start talking, right, guys? So basically your call passes through multiple switches, right? This concept is known as call, right? So you are connecting to a nearest tower, guys. Okay, that's your BTS tower. This tower has a switch. This switch will take to the central location, and from that location it goes to another switch, and that switch is basically connected to a tower, and the person who is around that tower basically, guys, right, is connected to this. So this is how the link happens, guys. You connected to this switch, your friend connected to this switch, and this is how the data transmission takes place. And now, guys, you can see every second how so many million people talking to each other. So it's a huge data load there, right? And these switches are primarily from a company called Ericsson. Now, guys, Ericsson uses a language called Erlang. So these switches are programmed using Erlang, and they are basically using Erlang, processing the data, right? And processing that data transmission, which is at a very high pace. Okay, so normal programming languages are not going to handle this kind of a job, guys. You will need a functional programming here. Guys, are you clear about the functional programming? That so many examples of the functional programming. Is that clear, guys? Please let me know. Is it going good so far with you, guys? Okay, a lot of people. Ayush, Ayushi, Tanisha. Okay, Kushi. Good, guys. Now, how exactly you define a functional programming language? How you differentiate between a non-functional programming language and a functional programming? That's a very simple and clear-cut distinction, guys. Okay. If in a function call, guys, if you are calling a function, okay, if in a function call you can pass function as a parameter, guys, let's say this is our function, add, let's say there's a function with the name add, and it takes two parameters, x and y, right? So x is one parameter, y is one other parameter, and what it will return, guys, it will return x plus y to us, right? It's a normal, and how you call this function. So you call this function, and let's say you want to add 2 and 3. This is how you will call, and it will return a 5 to you, right? That is how you do that. Now, guys, in a functional programming language, you can pass a function as one of the parameter. Now, guys, this is a number, this is a number. So obviously, this is not the example where I'm talking about the functional programming concept, right? So let's say there is a function 1, f1, and then it takes a couple of parameters, and one parameter it takes is a function actually, let's say, let's say the function, and some other parameters are also there. So this is the function we are trying to write, and it is taking 3 parameters. One of the parameter is a function again. This is the example of the functional programming language, guys. So inside the function, if you can use another function as a parameter, this is known as functional programming concept. Is that clear, guys? So you can pass function as one of the parameter in a functional programming language. This is not possible in non-functional programming languages, guys. That's a specific feature of the functional programming languages only. Is that clear, guys? Please let me know. थोड़ा जल्दी जल्दी रिप्लाई कर सकते हैं. Okay, Kushag. So Akrit Bhargav is saying that what is the main reason for difference between functional programming languages and object-oriented programming languages? So basically, the arrival of the functional programming languages was that if you have a large data in a sequential format or in a list format, functional programming are the best suited for that. Okay, and they are primarily used for data processing actually, Bhargav, right? But in case of object-oriented programming, basically these are the languages designed so that you can mold a real-world problem into the, a programmatic template, basically, right? So that was like, you want to, kind of map a real-world problem into a programmatic template. That's where you need object-oriented programming concept. But here as I'm talking about that, your switch has to process a lots of data, right? And that data is basically coming in a real time, right? So it's not a static data, it's a completely dynamic data, right? So in that kind of a scenario, functional programming are the best fit to handle that. And as I said, there is no concept of looping, because ultimately looping is a very slow process. If you have very few items in a list or in a dictionary or in an array, right, it's okay to use the loops. But if you have a large amount of data, looping becomes a kind of a very slow in execution. Do you get this point, Bhargav? Please let me know. I think that was the question from your side, right? Did I answer that? Okay. So, okay, good, Akrit. Now, guys, let's take one example of a functional programming in Python. So let's say, guys, we have a list in Python. We have a list. So list is basically arrays in C programming, okay? Or arrays in any other programming like C++ or Java. So let's say, guys, we have a list, okay? And we have couple of names there, let's say, okay? So let's say we talk about couple of cities in Rajasthan. Jaipur is there, okay? And then Bikaner is there, right? And then Udaipur is there. And then let's say Kota is there. So a couple of cities are there. 4 cities, okay? This is your list, right? And if you see that, if you can use a type function that will find out what is the data type of this. So it's a list, guys, right? Now, guys, let's say, understand that the problem statement, guys. Let's say, guys, I want to print the length of each text. Can you see, guys? This is the string showing Jaipur. This is one more string in the list. Guys, the individual items in the list are strings. Do you agree with this, guys? Every item in the list is a str data type. This one is str. This one is also str. Str means a string, right? Text. This is also str. This is also 4 items are there, right, guys? 4 items are there. If you see, if you want to find out that what is the data type of each item, so I'm using index, guys. That will give you the first item in the list one, Jaipur, and I'm just checking the type. That will give us output str. So all items are basically str. Now, guys, the problem statement is this, that we want to print the length of each city name. We want to print the length. And guys, do you know what is the function to print a length of a string in Python? Guys, what is that? Alien function is there, right? Alien. So if I remove this type and check it out, alien, right? But that is only printing me the first name length, right? The first city length is printing. Jaipur length 6, not others. I want to print each and every string length. I want to print this length as well, this length as well, this length as well, and this length. How come I can do that? Maybe I can go for an approach using a loop mechanism. So how can we do that, guys? For each item in list 1, that's a for each loop, guys, I'm writing. And right, I can do the print item. So if I run this code, you're getting the city name, guys. Can you see Jaipur printing in the first iteration, and the second iteration it prints Bikaner, and then Udaipur, and then Kota. But this is not what we want, right? We want the length there. So we can use a alien function here, and we can. So it's a simple looping mechanism. Can you see, guys? That's a simple looping mechanism here. Now, guys, that is a looping mechanism. Another approach that you can use is a list comprehension. Guys, it's a shortcut way of writing kind of a loop only. So how to write a list comprehension? First, you have the square brackets there, and go inside, guys. And now for each item in list 1, what you want to do with the item, that you have to write just before the for loop. Can you see, guys? For each, you speak like that. For each item in list 1, but you don't write the each. For each item in list 1, what you want to do with the item? We want to calculate the length, right? So we can just say like this. That will print you the same output. Can you see, guys? But in the list format. So, guys, can you see the length is 6, 7, 7, 4. We are getting the same answers as well. This is known as list comprehension. It's a kind of a shortcut. Can you see that, guys? Right? A list comprehension. Probably you have seen the third approach. That would be a functional programming language approach, guys. The third approach I'm talking about is this. See that? Guys, to use a functional programming concept, first we need to write a function. Okay, so there is a function, guys, let's say with the name f1. This takes a string as a parameter. Can you see, guys? This takes as a string as a parameter, then you have a colon, and now, guys, it returns alien of this str1. Can you see, guys? That's a simple function. So here you can see the name of the function is f1. It is taking parameter str1 and returns that, so, guys, if I execute it, my function got defined. And now, guys, can I call that? Yes, I can call that. But how to call it? The name of the function. And then, guys, let's say I want to pass the name Jaipur. So, guys, I want to calculate the length of Jaipur by calling this function. Okay. And now you get the length. Can you see that, guys? Okay. Now, guys, we have a function which is a part of the functional programming features in Python. There is a function called map. Okay, there is a function called map, guys. Can you see map? Okay, and now, guys, map will actually take 2 parameters from you. Are you guys clear? Map will actually take 2 parameters from you. So we will be giving the two parameters. The second, I will talk about the second parameter first. The second parameter has to be a list or an array or a sequence. So guys, we already have a list, right? This is the list we have. So I will pass on this list as it is from here. So guys, so let me pass on this list one. So guys, this is the second parameter I have passed on. The first parameter I'm passing is the function. And guys, already we have a function, guys. Can you see? Already we have a function f1, right? So I'm giving the name of that function. And guys, mind it, I'm not calling the function f1. If I was calling the function f1 here, I had to write this way, right? But I'm just mentioning the signature of the function, right guys? Can you see? I'm just writing the f1 here. It's not a function call. The function call is like that. You use parentheses, right? But I'm not using anything like that here. Can you see that, right guys? So this is, you know, a map function we are using here that you can see, guys. And just a minute, guys. Okay, so now let's run this, okay? And what we get in the output, see that. Okay, can you see, guys? We get some output, but it is showing you as an object. Can you see, guys? That means the data is there inside in this function, but we are not able to see that data. We need to typecast this kind of an output. Okay, so maybe we can typecast using a list. So guys, can you see I'm using a list here, and then I'm writing this. Let's see if we get the output now. Can you see, guys, what happened? It is printing the length of every city name in the list. Print it here as well, so that, you know, we don't have to scroll. So guys, these are the three things: your function f1, which is written here, your data, which is in the list one. Now I'm calling the map function, taking two parameters. The first parameter has to be a function name, so we have given the f1 here, and this is the second parameter, which is basically the sequence, right? So exactly how this map function is working. Map function is very kind of a simple to use. So let's understand that, guys, here using a kind of a flow diagram, that how come map is actually working. So guys, see, this was our list. So containing what? Jaipur, right? And then Bikaner, and then Udaipur, right? And then Kota. And this was your function, defined f1, right? Taking a str1, and then you say return len str1. This was your function. Now you are calling map, and you are passing this data as well to map. This is your list one. So guys, as a parameter, you are giving list one, and you are passing this parameter as well. So both of things are passed to this function. So now how the map will work? So guys, internally map will do one exercise, okay? It will take the first item from the list, okay, and call the f1 function on that, right? So calling the f1 function on that and printing you the output 6. Then map will take another item from the list and again calling the function f1 on that and printing you the output, right? Again list taking the next item from the list and, you know, again calling the f1 on that, right? And printing the output on that, something like that. And then guys, you know, taking the another item from this and calling the same function f and then printing you the output. Can you see, guys, how it's working, right? So map is basically picking one item at a time from the list and calling this function f1 on that, and whatever output is coming, it makes output, you know, makes a list of all those outputs, guys. So you will get the output back into a form of a list. Can you see, guys? This is how internally map is working, and this is basically as a feature, as a functional programming feature of the Python, guys. Okay, this is the functional programming feature of your Python. Guys, let me know, is the map clear with you, that how is the map is working? Guys, can you please confirm on that, how the map is working? Please let me know, guys. Please be quick. Harshita is there, Prachi is there, Khushi is there, Ahana, Sumit, Akrit, okay, Vishwanath, okay, Manvendra Sekhawat, Samriddhi, okay, Samrit, sorry, Pranav, Ayush, Katoch, Varsha. Good, guys. That is the first example of your functional programming. Now, guys, let's talk about one more requirement, guys. Let's talk about one more requirement. So I'll change the problem statement now, guys. Okay. And the problem statement is this, that, guys, problem statement is this: find out only cities, right? Only those cities from list 1, okay, which has PUR as a subtext. Guys, do you get this problem statement clearly? What it says? Find out only those cities from the list 1 which has a PUR as a subtext in their name. You just need to print only those cities in the name, in the output. On the output, just print those city names which contain PUR in their names. And guys, what the list 1 as of now we have? The list 1 as of now we have is this. So guys, what should be our output? Based on this problem statement, our output should be what? Only 2 cities would be there in the output, guys. Jaipur and the Udaipur. Not Bikaner, not Kota, because these, city names do not satisfy the condition we are looking for. We are looking for a city name having a PUR anywhere. It can be anywhere, right? A PUR has to be there. Right? Now, guys, there is a membership function in Python in. So if I say PUR in Jaipur, let's say, can you see, guys? It is a subtext and it's the text. Subtext means the portion, one portion of that. So guys, in that scenario, this is going to give us true. Can you see, guys? Right? And if I say PUR in Kota, that is going to give false there. Can you see, guys? True and false is based on the condition if that subtext is within this or not. If it is there, it will give us true. Otherwise, it will give us a false. So that's just one example that, how we can basically think in terms of the business logic, that how come we can solve this problem, right? Now, guys, what approach you will take? Guys, can you suggest me how come we can achieve this? Just using your basic skills. I'm not talking about in terms of functional programming. What you know as of now, how come we can achieve that? Would you like to say something on that, guys? Any suggestions from your side? Please let me know. So Pranav is saying that you can use a for loop. Okay, Samrid Srivastav is saying we can use linear search. Okay, Samrid, that is a good idea, but how you will achieve that programmatically? Have you seen any code which implements a kind of a linear search? I think you're talking about in terms of data structure, right? That we can take a brute force approach where we pick every item from the list and check that whether it has a PUR in or not, right? That's what you are talking, I think, right? So even Ashani Malhotra has given me a code as well. Already she has given me a code over the chat window, and that's good actually. So guys, I will use her approach here. So guys, how come using the for loop we can do that? So guys, for Ashani, there is some issue. A little correction is required in your code. So just see how I write. Some typo maybe there at your end, and that's why So for each item in list 1, right? What you want to do with the item? What do you want to do with the item? So we are going to print the item on the console, but with a certain condition. The condition is this, that if the item, which is basically, guys, what will happen in the first iteration, item is equal to Jaipur. In the second iteration, item would be directly equal to Bikaner. In the third iteration, item would be equal to Udaipur. In the fourth iteration, item would be equal to Kota, right? So can we do this, kind of a check that if PUR in item, right? If PUR in item, that means if this condition is true, we are going to print the name of that city. Otherwise, we will not print that city name. Can you see, guys? If PUR is there in the city name, then only you have to print on the output. Otherwise, skip it, right? We are not going to print that name. So if you run this piece of code, guys, you're going to get Jaipur and Udaipur only, right? Let's say you want to change the problem statement. You want to print only those city names which has, which has no PUR in their names. No, we don't want PUR in the name. So guys, just change this statement, not in. And now, guys, what happens? See that Bikaner and Kota. So not in is like keyword there, right? So that, guys, is that code clear to you? That how come we have we have been using a membership function in to find out that, guys, what do you say? Was that clear? Yeah, Ishani, that's fine. I understand that. Okay, that is there. Okay, so for each item in list one, if you are an item, then you do that. Now, guys, let's try to achieve this using the functional programming concept, guys, right? Let's try to achieve that using a functional programming concept. So for that, guys, first we are going to write a function. Okay, so what function I'm going to write? Let's see, guys, def. Function name is, let's say, f2. And let's say, guys, it takes parameter as a string, str1. And now, guys, what we want to check in the str1? Simple. If PUR in str1, right, guys, we are going to return true, else we are going to return false. Can you see, guys? I have written a simple function which only gives you true, false as an output, right? If PUR is there in the str1, it will return a true to us. Otherwise, it will return a false to us. Guys, can you see that? And now let's test this function, whether it's working correctly over Jaipur. Can you see, guys? So gives true to us, calling F2 over another city name, let's say Kota. And guys, oh, sorry, there is a issue, guys. I did not close that. So use that, guys. False. Can you see, guys? It is giving us a true and false. And now, guys, see the power of the functional programming. So, guys, now I'm introducing you another function which comes from functional programming features, kind of a filter function, guys. A filter. There is a function with the name filter. And now, guys, see, in the filter, again, it is going to take two parameters. The second parameter has to be a list. Actually, it can be a sequence. It can be a list. It can be a tuple. It can be a string as well. Okay, guys, this is your list one. And the first parameter has to be a function. Can you see, guys? Function F2. And now let's run this. Again, we are getting an object, right? So we need to typecast that object information into a list. So guys, I'm Jaipur and Udaipur. Only two outputs are there. Guys, can you interpret what the filter is doing here? Guys, can you please interpret on that what the filter is doing here? So let me print the so that you can better, collect your thoughts around what's going on. Guys, can you see that was the function we wrote? That is the data we have. And this is the call we are making, passing on the two parameters, F2 and the this one. Guys, can you interpret what's going on in the filter function here? Kya bolte ho? What's going on here? If you see, guys, right, what is happening, right? So Khushi Srivastav is saying that printing the elements from the sequence which return true after passed through the given function. Very good, Khushi. That's right. Yes, Pranav, it is only printing the true values. Guys, can you see? It is only printing those items in the output for which the function F2 is returning true. Are you guys getting this? ये सिर्फ उन्हीं एंट्रीज को आउटपुट में दिखा रहा है जिन एंट्रीज के लिए या जिन आइटम्स के लिए F2 ट्रू रिटर्न कर रहा है. फॉल्स रिटर्न करने वाले स्टेटमेंट्स को वो आगे आउटपुट में नहीं दिखा रहा है. Are you guys getting that point clearly? Let me know, please. That's why the name function called filter is there. It is only passing, right? Only passing certain items if they, meet a certain condition. If they meet a condition that the function is giving true for them, then we see them in the output, otherwise not. At the same time, guys, let me call this function map as well to you. I will call the function map as well, and you will see the difference. Guys, I'm calling the map function this time with the same parameters. Here, can you see, guys? And now see what you get. Can you see, guys? For this, we are getting true. Jaipur giving it true. Bikaner giving false. Udaipur giving true. And Kota giving false. And now, guys, because this is true, and that's why you get Jaipur in the output for the filter. And this is also true, and that's why you get Udaipur in the. So, guys, map, as I said, map function will do what? It will take every item from the list one at a time and apply the function F2 on that. So it takes Jaipur for the first time, returns true. It takes Bikaner in the next iteration, returns false. It takes Udaipur, returns true. It takes Kota, returns false. But the filter is different, right? For those items which is, for which the function is giving true, we see them in the output, otherwise not. Is that clear, guys? Function, filter. That's the functional programming, guys. That's the function programming. Is that clear? Please let me know, guys. Okay, good. Now, guys, coming to the third function for today, which is again a functional programming feature. Okay, let me talk that about function now, guys. So see that. Let's say, guys, we have a list now, list 2, let's say. And that list has a couple of items, guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Can you see, guys? That is our list 2. Okay. And what we want to find out is we want to basically add all these numbers, guys. What do we want to do, guys? We want to add all these numbers together and print the final output. Now, there can be multiple ways, but how come we achieve this through a functional programming? Guys, there can be different ways. I can go through a loop, or maybe I think we have some direct function as well. Some, I think there is a function, some list 2 probably that can do that. That is there. Can you see, guys? Okay, that is there. Now, guys, how to achieve this? Yeah, Manvind, that's good. You're right. Okay. So now, guys, let's achieve that through a functional programming. So for that, guys, I'm going to write a function and see the power of that function, guys. I'm going to define a function F3, which will take 2 parameters, let's say X and Y. okay? And it just returns what? X plus Y. Can you see, guys? This function is returning that. So it will take two parameters at a time, okay? And it will, give us a summation of these two numbers. Now, guys, I'm calling one more member from the functional programming, reduce. Can you see, guys? A reduce is there. And now, guys, again, reduce takes two parameters. The second parameter has to be a sequence of the data only. So this time we have a sequence of data in the list 2. And now, guys, in the first parameter, it has to be a function call. Can you see, guys? A function call is there, F3, right? And now, guys, let's call this. Oh, we got an error. The name reduce is not defined, okay? How come we are getting this issue? Basically, reduce is a function not directly available, guys, okay? This is inside a package called functools. So, guys, we can import or include, this is kind of an including of a header file. So import functools. Guys, we are importing that functools. And if you call a dir method directory and call functools on that, it will print you what are the different functions available inside this package. Can you see, guys? A lot of functions are available there. Couple of them are dunder functions. I will not talk about them, but these are the dunder functions, double underscore. We call them as a dunder function. Guys, can you see there is a reduce function here? But how to use it? Guys, to use that, you have to first mention the name of the package. So name of the package is functools, right? And then you have to use the dot. Can you see, guys? This is the way. And that's, see, guys, can you see the output? Let me, make it a little clean so that you can understand that what's going on. Guys, can you see? That is there. So that was our function. We called the reduce function, taking two parameters, F3 and list2. Exactly what is happening here. Guys, can you see the output is coming 55? That means it added all those numbers which were added, which were there in the list2. Let me change this function, guys. Let me return X into the Y. Can you see, guys? Let me return X into the Y. What it will return now? Oh, let me rerun this, guys. I have to rerun the function as well because we have changed it. Can you see, guys? This is the output coming. What's going on here? To explain that stuff, let me pick this list from here and I will replace this list directly, guys. Can you see? That is there. So what exactly happening here, guys? Reduce function takes two parameters. Like reduce will do one thing, guys. Reduce will take two set of values from this list, 1 and 2 to begin with. It will give 1 to the X and 2 to the Y, right? And that will give 3 in the output. That 3 will again go back to this function as a parameter X, and it will pick the next item 3 and will give, Y as a parameter, right, guys? So again, 3 plus 3, it is 6. Then 6 will go back to X as a parameter and picking the next item from here, for parameter Y. And this is how it keeps on adding or keeps on multiplying the numbers for you guys. So one at a time, it starts with this, right, guys? So let's say here, maybe we can, explain this visually to you guys. Kind of, let's say, guys, this was your function, define F3, taking X and Y, return, let's say X plus Y, and we have this list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 and 10. So guys, in the beginning, we have this X1, Y2. So output remains 3, guys. This 3 will go back to X and this 3 will come to Y. So again, 6. Now this 6 will again go back to 6 and picking this 4 for Y. So again, output is 10. Now 10 again going back to X, right? Picking 5 from here for Y. So this is 15. Now this 15 again going back to X and so on. And that's why you get the answer 55. Guys, is that clear that how come this reduce function is working for you. Is that clear, guys? So Khushi and Rakesh. Now, guys, what is more interesting to know, guys? The more interesting to is know that, guys, there are a lot of tools in the market or in the IT industry, right? Like Hadoop or like Spark or like Databricks. Okay. These are the tools in the market to handle the big data. Big data means a very large amount of a data, okay, which you cannot process in your local machine. And that's a very subjective kind of a definition, depending on the configuration, right? Your data processing capabilities on the local machine may change, right? For my machine, if I cannot process a data beyond 5 GB, right? Data beyond 5 GB is a big data for me. But if, let's say, a Manvendra has a machine which is more powerful and it can process up to a 10 GB of a data on the local machine, beyond 10 GB, is a big data for Manvendra. So it's a very subjective, guys. There is no kind of a thumb rule which you can, use and say that up, beyond this, beyond this data volume or beyond this data size, you have a big data. No, it keeps on changing from environment to environment, from context to context. But guys, to handle the big data, these are the most popular tools. Databricks is most latest one. Okay, guys, all of these tools work on a philosophy called map reduce. All of these functions, all of these tools are based on this map reduce feature. So we have, gone through map as well. We have gone through this reduce. And what is more interesting to know, guys, this was a technique given by an Indian software developer who is still working with Google in US, Silicon Valley. The name of that person was Sanjay Ghemawat. He is one of the most reputed, software developer in the Silicon Valley. He is a Google fellow, is still working there. Not of a very old age, around 54 or 55. And that's, let's see, who's Sanjay Ghemawat. That's okay there. So that's the guy, Sanjay Ghemawat, guys. Okay, is an Indian American computer scientist and software engineer, Google fellow, and known for this guy's distributed system, like map reduce kind of a concepts here, basically, right? So very powerful profile there. Okay, and he's working with their in Google since 1999. Okay, so that is there, guys. Now that was about the functional programming. We could not take a break, guys, but I think that should be fine with you. Are you okay, guys? We missed that break what we supposed to take. Is that okay with you guys? I'm sorry for it, but we could not take it. Okay, Hardik and Siddharth and Khushi. Tanisha saying it's fine, sir. Good. Good, guys. Thanks for being here. Now, guys, I'm switching. Yeah, Pranav. Now I'm switching to kind of analytics, So, guys, there is a term called data analytics. Okay. More precisely, I will try to define this term tomorrow. Data analytics means finding the insights from the data, finding the meaningful information from the data so that you can take better decisions in your business, maybe to improve the revenue, maybe to, kind of stop some of the leakages that they are in your business processes, or maybe to improve the customer, satisfaction or customer experience. A lot of things can happen around that, right? So data analytics, guys, have you gone through a web series available over this what's that, Prime Video, Amazon Prime Videos? There is a web series with the name Jack Ryan. right? And that guy is a data analyst with the CIA. And through the data of Swift transaction, Swift, there is a term called Swift, right? Swift is basically like if you have to do a bank transaction from one account to another account in the same country, you make use of IFSC code. Do you remember, guys? If I want to send money from from my account to my brother, let's say, who is in India, so for that I need to use a IFSC code. But if you want to kind of a send amount from one country to another country, you have to make use of a Swift basically code. Okay, and every bank has a Swift code. So SDFC will have a Swift code. SBI will have a Swift code. If someone wants to send the money from outside, so and then there is a humongous amount of a Swift transactions data, and from that data he does some analysis using the tools and finds out that something fishy is going on in the Middle East. From different countries, data, the money is flowing to a one person account. That's how they identify that some some terrorist activities might soon happen. So that's how so that analytics is like finding the insights from the data. If I'm not able to find the insights from the data is of no use at all, right? It's not going to help you. You have to kind of use that data in such a way that you can find the meaningful information, find the insights from that. Okay, so that is data analytics. Now guys, to make it more clear that what exactly you do in case of a data analytics. So guys, I have a data, I have a kind of a file which contains a data. So let me share the link. Guys, that data is available remotely. And that data is in a CSV file, which is a text file. The extension CSV stands for comma separated values. That is one thing. And guys, if I open that CSV file in my browser, I have sent the link to you as well. If you open that, can you see, guys? I opened this and this is there. Can you see, guys? Rank is one of the column in this data. Discipline is one of the column in this data. PSD, service, gender, and salary. And guys, all of the first entry is basically the column names. Rest of the entries are actual data that you can see. This data is coming from a university, guys. And this data is about the teaching staff there, right? So there is a one person in teaching having a designation as a professor working with department B, completing 56 years after PhD, 49 years into the job or service, gender male, salary is this. Another person working as a professor, department A, 12 years after PhD, 6 years in job, male, and this is the salary. And here itself, you can see, guys, right? One more guy as a assistant professor there working in this department and like that. And then there are, associate professors as well. So guys, so designation, either that person is a professor there, assistant professor there, or associate professor there. Only two departments are shown in the data, A or B. Okay, they have salted it, right? They are not showing the actual name. Maybe you can take it like CC and EC, or like that, IT, or DSC, and then PSD column, then service column, then gender column, and that's the salary column. This, and because all of the entries in a single row are separated by a comma, and that's why the name of this format is known as comma separated values. If you separate them using a tab, then this file would be known as a separated value, tab separated values, guys, TSV format. It would be a TSV format. Okay, but right now it's a comma separated values, and that's the extension is CSV. And this file, this data is remotely available, guys. Okay, can we read this data into our code? Yes, we can read this data and we can do the analysis on that. So how come you can achieve that? Guys, to achieve this, you need a very popular package called Pandas. So we are going to import pandas now. And if you want to know what is the version of the pandas we are using, so guys, we can use pandas. I think dunder functions will work here version. Let me check that. Yes, guys, that's the version of the pandas we are using, or like, which is there in the Colab environment. This is the current version, guys, and this may change from, environment to environment, guys, particularly on your local environment. And the Colab, you may have the same version, but it may vary. It's very normal, guys. Now, guys, how come we can read that data from the remote location? Now, guys, if you want to find out that what are the different functions given by pandas so that you can use them for your purpose, so dir method will help us in that scenario, guys. So can you see a lot of functions available there? And can you see, guys, if you want to read a CSV data, this is the function. If you want to read Excel data, this is the function. If you want to read a JSON data, this is the function. If you want to read HTML data, this is the function. If you want to read a pickle file, you can read that. Okay. If you have some SQL data, you can, if you have a database, relational database, so you can go for read SQL. A lot of options are there, guys. Lots of options are there. But as of now, we want to go with this read CSV. Even if you're not very sure about read CSV, what it does, right? And you want to go with the name. So maybe we can do one more thing, guys. We can call a help function, and there we can get the more details. Help, guys. Okay, help on what? The function. Which function? The read CSV. How to call that? The name of your package, then dot, and then call that read CSV there. We would be getting the more details around it. So guys, can you see, we see the entire documentation of that function. So here you have the complete details. So you can go through this, but I think that will, can you see, guys, read a comma separated value or a CSV file into a data frame. Data frame is a new term here, guys. Data frame is basically a tabular data. So data frame is a data structure used by Pandas library to hold the data, right? Guys, the list is one of the data structure, stack is one of the data structure, queue is one of the data structure, trees are one of the data structures. So a lot of data structures are there to organize the data, right? Pandas is using this data structure, which is a tabular data format, and the name of the data structure is data frame. Okay. So guys, that will read our data into a tabular format, and we are going to have, we are going to call it as a data frame. So guys, let's use this function to read the data. Chalo, padhte hain. So let's go for it. Pandas.read CSV. And now guys, here you need to mention the URL of the file that you want to read from the remote. And that's the URL we have, guys. You can read the data from the local file as well. Local environment, you can read the data from the Google Drive as well. It's not necessary that you can always read the data from the remote location. Data can be anywhere, right? And you have the ways to achieve that. But as of now, this is going to work with us. And now, guys, let's say we read this data into an object. And let me put the name of that object as df, okay? So this is going to be the case. So guys, if we are successful in reading the data from that CSV file, we must have something in the df. So let's print that df now. Okay, can you see, guys? Entire data is there now with us in our local environment, in our cloud environment. We have read the data from that remote location. But guys, here you will see one difference. This is the column which was not there in the CSV file. Can you see, guys? This is known as the index column. It has been added by Pandas in the data frame. Basically, this is a tabular data, and we call that data, tabular data, as a data frame. And if you want to kind of, find out the type of this object df, can you see, guys? The type is data frame. Okay, and how many rows and columns this data frame has, you can call a method called shape. It's not a method, it's a property, guys. अगर ये method होता तो मुझे ऐसे call करना पड़ता, लेकिन मैं इसको ऐसे नहीं call कर रहा हूँ. df.shape. Can you see, guys? In data, we have total 78 entries, and there are 6 columns. Which columns are there? What are their names? We can find out that as well, guys. df.columns. Here you rank, discipline, PhD, service, gender, salary. If you are not very happy with this kind of a output, maybe you can clean a little bit and you can typecast into a list. Can you see, guys? Two lists. I think we have a better representation now. So rank is the first column, discipline is the another column, PhD the one more column, service, gender, and the salary. This is there, guys. Okay. Now let's say, for example, let's say you just want to print the salary column. Let's say you want to just print the salary column, or let's say you want to print the rank column. How come you can do that? So guys, if we just say print df, it will print the entire data, right? ये पूरा का पूरा data frame print करके रख देगा तुम्हारा. But कई बार क्या होता है कि अभी तो ठीक है, we have only the 78 entries in this, right? Can you see guys, indexing is starting from 0 and then going up to 77. So in total 78 entries are there. Guys, अभी तो data frame में बहुत छोटा data है and we can print that. But sometimes if you have a lakhs of record, guys, then this is not the good way to do that, right? So उसके लिए हमें क्या करना पड़ता है? We can go for a head method, जो कि शुरुआत के सिर्फ 5 records को दिखाएगा. It will show you only the 5 initial records. So guys, can you see that? This is there, right? Last में जाके देखना, if you want to see something in the last, so you can use the tail function there. That is there. अगर बीच में से कहीं से भी कुछ भी देखना है तो सैंपल मेथड को यूज कर सकते हैं. वो रैंडमली किसी भी रो को पिक करके रख लेगा. कैन यू सी गाइस? इस बार 11वीं रो उसने पिक करी है. दोबारा रन करेंगे तो ये चेंज हो सकता है. कैन यू सी गाइस? 76. इफ यू रन अगेन that can be 24 and so on. So you know, अगर यहाँ पे कुछ नंबर लिख देंगे तो वो उतनी रोज रैंडमली पिक करके ले आएगा. अगर आपने 5 यहाँ पे लिख दिया तो you will see the 5 rows there and randomly picked up. Can you see guys? One row collected from 62 index, then 10, then 34, 29 and 11. If you run it again, this is going to change. So this is how, you know, just for random sampling, you want to see यार कि अगर मैं पूरा data frame print नहीं कर सकता तो कम से कम ये तो पता कर लूं कि उसका composition क्या है, columns कैसे हैं, किस तरीके की information उसमें आई हुई है, right? इस तरीके की चीजें हैं. Do that, first of all you need to get the df लिखना पड़ेगा, bracket लगाना पड़ेगा, and we have to mention the name of our column. Salary column is there. There you see, salary column, right? साथ में अगर rank column को भी print करना है, कॉमा लगा के हम दूसरे column का नाम भी लिख सकते हैं. लेकिन अब तुम्हें अगर एक और list की जरूरत पड़ने वाली है, अगर एक से ज्यादा कॉलम का डेटा प्रिंट करना हो तो आप उसको लिस्ट के अंदर देना पड़ेगा, otherwise it is going to raise error to you, right? See guys, salary there, rank. Now guys, let's say you want to find out what is the average salary. अब average salary कैसे पता करेंगे? Very easy. हम लोग जा सकते हैं df salary column के अंदर और यहाँ पे pandas को बोल सकते हैं कि भैया बता मेरा mean क्या है, what is the mean? Can you see guys? That will give us the mean salary. ये एक एनालिटिक्स का फॉर्मेट है. चलो थोड़ा सा आगे चलते हैं. लेट्स यू नो फाइंड आउट दैट आई वांट टू प्रिंट those names, or like I want to know those people who has a salary of more than 1 lakh. सवाल समझ में आया? क्या सवाल है? मुझे इस डेटा में से सिर्फ उन लोगों की डिटेल्स चाहिए जिनकी सैलरी 1 लाख से ज्यादा है. हाउ कम वी आर गोइंग टू अचीव दैट? ये कैसे करेंगे? सो उसके लिए हम क्या कर सकते हैं? वी कैन मेक यूज ऑफ अ सैलरी कॉलम गाइस, और मैं यहाँ पे एक कंडीशन डालूंगा कि यार आई नीड those people who has a salary of more than 1 lakh. Is that okay guys, having 5 numbers? Yeah. So guys, if I run this, you are going to get a true false kind of a sequence. Can you see guys? This sequence is basically known as Boolean indexing. इसका क्या मतलब है? अगर ये पहली रो के लिए मुझे ट्रू दे रहा है तो इसका मतलब है कि इस बंदे की सैलरी 1 लाख से ज्यादा है. ट्रू तभी देगा. अगर सेकंड इंडेक्स मतलब सेकंड रो में जिसका इंडेक्स 1 है, अगर फॉल्स दे रहा है तो इसका मतलब है इस बंदे की सैलरी 1 लाख से कम है, और वो आप यहाँ पे देख भी सकते हैं. कैन यू सी गाइस? जब हमने यहाँ पे हेड लिखा था तो शुरुआती डेटा हमें कुछ प्रिंट हुआ. तो कैन यू सी गाइस, दिस सैलरी इज मोर देन 1 लाख बट दिस सैलरी इज लेस देन 1 लाख, एंड दैट्स व्हाई यू आर गेटिंग अ सीक्वेंस लाइक ट्रू फॉल्स ट्रू फॉल्स ट्रू फॉल्स. ये बूलियन इंडेक्सिंग कहलाता है। इस बूलियन इंडेक्सिंग को अब हम आगे यूज करके एक्चुअल डेटा निकाल सकते हैं। ये एक्चुअल डेटा नहीं है, मुझे तो डिटेल्स चाहिए, कंप्लीट डिटेल्स, कौन कौन लोग हैं वो जिनकी सैलरी 1 लाख से ज्यादा है। तो हम क्या करेंगे, इसको, इस एक्सप्रेशन को एज ए फिल्टर यूज करेंगे और हम अपने डेटा फ्रेम को देने वाले हैं। मैं अब अपने डेटा फ्रेम को बोलने वाला हूं कि भाई बता तेरे पास क्या स्टेट है, अगर मैं तेरे को ये फिल्टर दे दूं तो वो इस फिल्टर को यूज करते हुए सिर्फ मुझे आउटपुट में वही रोज दिखाएगा जिनके लिए इसको ट्रू मिल रहा है। आर यू गाइस गेटिंग दिस? आई विल गेट ओनली दोज रोज इन द आउटपुट फॉर विच दिस फिल्टर इज गिविंग अ ट्रू। जहां जहां पे भी ट्रू है वही आउटपुट में देखेंगे विद द कंप्लीट डिटेल्स, बाकी सब चीजें गायब हो जाएंगी। कैन यू सी गाइस नाउ? दैट इज द कंप्लीट डिटेल्स। Here you see. So guys, all the entries that we see now, index 0, then index 2, then index 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, 8, 9 are गायब, वो नहीं दिख रहे हैं। 10, 11, then 12 is missing. वो क्यों मिस हैं? क्योंकि उनकी सैलरी 1 लाख से कम है और यहाँ पे सिर्फ उसी डेटा को दिखाया जा रहा है जिसकी सैलरी 1 लाख से ऊपर है। आपको के बारे में बताओ, जिसकी सैलरी 1 लाख से ऊपर है, तो अब मुझे इस कंडीशन थोड़ा सा चेंज करना पड़ेगा। मुझे यहाँ पर कुछ एंड ऑपरेटर का यूज करना पड़ेगा, राइट? तो एक कंडीशन तो मेरी ये होगी कि भाई सैलरी आपकी 1 लाख से ऊपर है, और दूसरी कंडीशन आप यहाँ पे यूज कर सकते हैं जिसमें आप ये लिखना पड़ेगा कि उसका जेंडर क्या होना चाहिए गाइस। व्हाट शुड बी द जेंडर? सो DF जेंडर should be equal to what? फीमेल, राइट? तो वो फीमेल होना चाहिए। और केस सेंसिटिव है, अगर गाइस देखेंगे यहाँ पे M कैपिटल है, फीमेल में F तरीके से लिखना पड़ेगा, अदरवाइज मेरी कंडीशन मीट आउट नहीं होगी। सो लेट्स सी इफ दैट वर्क्स फॉर अस। Yes, so can you see guys, now all the people are there with a female as a gender, right? So इस तरीके की चीजें हैं। अगर आपको ये पता करना है कि यार कितने प्रोफेसर हैं, कितने असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर हैं, कितने एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर्स हैं, तो वो काम भी आप कर सकते हैं। DF रैंक कॉलम के ऊपर आप एक फंक्शन कॉल कर सकते हैं, वैल्यू काउंट्स, that should give you the data guys. Can you see? So out of total data, 46 people are professors, 19 people are assistant professors, and 13 people are associate professors. Value counts, right? So इस तरीके की चीजें हैं। They are just kind of a starting guys कि हमने एक थोड़ा सा देखा है कि हम किस तरीके से pandas को यूज करने वाले हैं और हम क्या क्या उसके साथ कर सकते हैं। Pandas is a very very powerful library guys, very powerful, right? और कल हम इस बारे में भी बात करेंगे कि if you want to make out into a data science domain guys, अगर आपको data science domain में जॉब चाहिए तो क्या करना पड़ेगा, प्रोजेक्ट्स पे काम करना पड़ेगा। सबसे पहली चीज तो ये है, स्किल्स तो चाहिए, पाइथन में कोडिंग अच्छी चाहिए, राइट? थोड़ा SQL का नॉलेज होना चाहिए, थोड़ा स्टैटिस्टिक्स का नॉलेज होना चाहिए, थोड़ा ML का नॉलेज होना चाहिए, थोड़ा डीप लर्निंग का नॉलेज होना चाहिए, थोड़ा NLP का नॉलेज होना चाहिए। इन सभी को मिक्स करके हम अपने रिज्यूम में लिख सकते हैं। लेकिन उससे भी ज्यादा जो जरूरी चीज है वो ये है कि यू शुड हैव कपल ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट्स। और अगर आपको फ्यूचर में पेड इंटर्नशिप चाहिए कॉलेज में रहते हुए, यूनिवर्सिटी में रहते हुए, तो पहले अपने रिज्यूम में कुछ अच्छे प्रोजेक्ट्स दिखाइए कि हाँ मैंने अपने लेवल पे ये प्रोजेक्ट्स बना रखे हैं। तो जब आप किसी भी कंपनी में पेड इंटर्नशिप के लिए अप्लाई करें, देन यू हैव अ वेरी गुड चांसेस, राइट? अगर अपना कोरा रिज्यूम फॉरवर्ड करोगे तो कुछ नहीं होगा, नो ही मिलेगा। पहले कुछ तैयारी अपने लेवल पे कर लीजिए। अगर आप इस डेटा साइंस में जॉब में जाना चाहते हैं अगले 10 साल के लिए, 15 साल के लिए, ये एक बहुत ही हॉट डोमेन है गाइस, वेरी वेरी हॉट, वेरी वेरी हॉट, राइट? इंडिया में, यूएस में, यूरोप में, कहीं पे भी चले जाओ, एज ए फ्रेशर तो जॉब एज ए डेटा एनालिस्ट की ही लगेगी। बाद में जैसे जैसे एक्सपीरियंस होता जाता है, you can become a data scientist. Data scientist उसको कहते हैं जिसको डोमेन नॉलेज भी है। डोमेन का मतलब लेट्स से जिसको पता है कि इंश्योरेंस डोमेन कैसे काम करता है, लेट्स से जिसको पता है कि क्लिनिकल ट्रायल्स कैसे काम करती हैं, लेट्स से जिसको पता है कि बैंकिंग सिस्टम कैसे काम करता है, या जिसको पता है कि सप्लाई चेन कैसे काम करता है, जिसको पता है हेल्थ केयर कैसे काम करता है, जिसको पता है एजुकेशन सिस्टम कैसे, मतलब किसी पर्टिकुलर डोमेन का उसको ऑलरेडी एक्सपर्टीज है, उस डोमेन को यूज करते हुए और टेक्निकल कैपेबिलिटीज को यूज करते हुए वो कुछ बिजनेस में इंप्रूव करता है, तो उसको डेटा साइंटिस्ट कहते हैं एज ए फ्रेशर, राइट। आपकी एंट्री किसी भी स्टार्टअप में, किसी भी कंपनी में एज ए डेटा एनालिस्ट ही होगी। अलग अलग नाम हो सकते हैं, टाइटल्स हो सकते हैं, कोई डेटा एनालिस्ट कहेगा, कोई जूनियर डेटा साइंटिस्ट कहेगा, कोई बिजनेस एनालिस्ट कहेगा, कोई बीआई इंजीनियर कहेगा, कोई कुछ भी कहे, काम ऑलमोस्ट वैसा का वैसा ही है, एनालिटिक्स को फाइंड आउट करना, राइट। रिपोर्टिंग्स, विजुअलाइजेशन, राइट। इट्स अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग डोमेन गाइस। अगर आप सीखने के लिए, if you are hungry for learning, right, and you want to solve the challenges, it's a very very hot domain guys। आप चाहें तो ग्रेजुएशन के बाद यूएस की किसी यूनिवर्सिटी से मास्टर्स कर सकते हैं डेटा साइंस में, जो कि मणिपाल में एक बहुत कॉमन प्रैक्टिस है, राइट। तो वो आप अप्रोच ले सकते हैं। that is the easiest way to move out to US, but अभी थोड़ा सा difficult है। But I think with the arrival of the Joe Biden, things are becoming little easy. Otherwise, Canada can be one of the option. European countries are also open. Germany में अभी भर भर के दुनिया जा रही है इंडिया से, वहाँ पे आप जा सकते हैं। It's a booming economy and a very nice country as well. And so, other places as well. So इस तरीके से है, बहुत ज्यादा डिमांड है डेटा साइंटिस्ट की या ऐसे लोगों की जो इस तरीके का काम कर सकते हैं, राइट। और ये आगे बढ़ने वाला है बॉस, क्योंकि नॉन टेक्निकल, टेक्निकल हर जगह इनकी इतनी जरूरत है, राइट। सो हम एकेडमी में देखते हैं, हमारे यहाँ बहुत सारे लोग हैं किस तरीके से वो स्टार्टअप्स में ज्वाइन करते हैं और बहुत जल्दी से आगे प्रोग्रेस करते हैं, रादर देन गोइंग फॉर बिग एमएनसी एज अ फर्स्ट जॉब, राइट। हम उनको बोलते हैं कि यार अगर तुम्हें सही प्रोजेक्शन पे जाना है तो किसी स्टार्टअप को ज्वाइन करो, या ऐसे डोमेन को या ऐसी टीम को ज्वाइन करो जहाँ पे लेटेस्ट चीजों पे काम हो रहा है, राइट। सो वो ये चीजें हैं। आई होप दिस सेशन वाज यूजफुल फॉर यू गाइस। और आपका कोई सवाल है, इफ यू हैव एनी क्वेश्चंस प्लीज पुट इट ऑन द चैट फॉर मी। और कोई फीडबैक आप देना चाहते हैं आज के सेशन के लिए, प्लीज आई एम ओपन फॉर दैट। आई विल रीड इट लाउड, चाहे वो नेगेटिव हो चाहे पॉजिटिव हो, मैं सबको पढ़ने वाला हूँ। और कल हम वापस से मिलेंगे 11 बजे। वी आर गोइंग टू मीट अगेन एट द 11 AM एंड टुमारो एज वेल। वी मे नॉट गो फॉर अ ब्रेक गाइस। पॉसिबल है कि हम कल भी ब्रेक पे ना जाएं, क्योंकि आज का मेरा एक्सपीरियंस ऐसा ही रहा है कि 15 मिनट भी हम नहीं दे पाए ब्रेक के लिए, ठीक है। तो I hope I'm going to see you everyone tomorrow as well at the same time 11, right? Generally हम 11 पे चालू करते हैं। और now there is a question coming from Ojas. Sir, why it is advised for business people like bankers to learn Python and not any other language? Okay, it's a good question, Ojas. I will quote a very recent example. एक लड़की थी जो कि IIT बॉम्बे से पास आउट, उसका नाम प्रियंका चौधरी, ठीक है। प्रियंका चौधरी was very good into studies, so उसके बाद वो IIM अहमदाबाद जाती है। So एक मिनट guys, can you hear me guys? I think I have some issue with my internet connection. क्या आप मुझे सुन सकते हैं guys? Can you hear me? Okay, I'm okay then. That's fine. Okay, so guys, this Priyanka Chaudhary moves to IIM Ahmedabad. Now, during the IIM Ahmedabad studies, she comes to know कि अगर उसको आगे कुछ अच्छा करना है तो उसको कुछ ना कुछ कोडिंग भी आनी चाहिए। उसको ऐसा वहां पे जाके फील हुआ, क्योंकि आजकल बहुत सारा एनालिटिक्स हो रहा है और मैनेजमेंट में भी एनालिटिक्स को सिखाया जाता है। और पहले बहुत सारे टूल्स आते थे, लोग टूल्स यूज करते थे, तो उसमें कोडिंग इतनी रिक्वायर्ड नहीं थी ओजस, ठीक है। लेकिन अब क्योंकि आपको बहुत सारा कस्टमाइजेशन करना होता है, तो लोग टूल्स की बजाय थोड़ा ऑप्शन इसको भी रखते हैं कि कैन दे राइट देयर ओन कोड, क्योंकि उससे कस्टमाइजेशन इजी है, पॉसिबल है। तो पाइथन एक तो क्या है, इजी टू पिकअप है, राइट। तो इसलिए और जनरल प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज है, बहुत जल्दी से पिकअप कर लेते हैं लोग, राइट। तो इस वजह से ऑलमोस्ट हर बिजनेस स्कूल में अब एक सब्जेक्ट कहीं ना कहीं ऐसा है जहां पे वो पाइथन या इस तरीके की तैयारी में वो लोग यूज करते हैं। और उस बंदी ने हमारे वी joined our one of the program on the analytics. उसने एक प्रोग्राम ज्वाइन किया था, अभी वो अमेजोन में जा चुकी है. सीजन दैट अमेजोन का हेडक्वार्टर कहाँ पे यूएस में गाइस? वॉशिंगटन स्टेट में है. कौन सी जगह है वो? आई जस्ट मिस दैट नेम. राइट, वैंकूवर के पास है. I missed that. So, guys, so इस तरीके से lot of people from the management are coming, जहाँ पे वो थोड़ा मोटा यार हर चीज के लिए वो टेक्निकल टीम पे डिपेंडेंट ना हो करके खुद अपने लेवल पे भी कुछ कर सकते हो, इसलिए पाइथन उनके लिए हैंडी हो जाता है. और आजकल क्योंकि सब लोग चाहते हैं कि यार बंदा हो तो फुल स्टैक डेवलपर हो. या मानवेंद्र शेखावत is saying Seattle. Yes, she is into Seattle. So guys, so छोटी मोटी चीजें वो खुद ही सॉल्व कर ले यार. हर चीज के लिए वो डेवलपर के पास है, यार ये करके दे दे, ऐसा चाहिए मुझे, वैसा चाहिए. छोटा मोटा ट्वीकिंग अपने कोड में वहीं कर ले, एटलीस्ट कोड को ही समझ ले कि दूसरे ने क्या लिखा है. तो इसलिए वो आजकल एक जरूरत हो गई है, एक नेसेसिटी हो गई है ओजस. राइट, या. So guys, that's it from my side. Any feedback? I'm open for that. हम 2 मिनट के लिए और open रखते हैं, उसके बाद we are going to close it for today. I hope you enjoyed the session. और नींद नहीं आई होगी, सोए नहीं होंगे. I have tried for that. And we're going to meet again tomorrow. कुछ कहना चाहें, कुछ feedback आज के session के लिए? Okay, so Kushagra is saying कि sir, can you please share the link for today's recording? So basically guys, Manipal से डॉक्टर तेजपाल हैं इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स में, वो इस पूरे इवेंट को कोऑर्डिनेट कर रहे हैं. मैं उनको ये लिंक शेयर कर दूंगा, वो आगे आपको फॉरवर्ड कर देंगे. Is that okay, Kushagra, with you? Okay, I'll share that. Don't worry, right? Or just says was a wonderful session. Thank you, sir. Looking forward for tomorrow's session. Tejpal sir is saying all students must join in time. Hey guys, I lost the connection, and that's why, just a minute. So guys, we are closing now. I lost the connection, so I'm back. I'm resuming, but just to say that we are closing now. So guys, see you tomorrow, same time, and please all join on the time, guys, so that we can start early, and we can cover more things. Is that okay with everyone, guys? Please let me know. Okay, then, yeah, Tanisha, Ahana, welcome, guys. So a lot of people saying thank you. So we are closing now. We'll share the recordings with you. Don't worry, guys. Okay. Good day.